Hello, I'm Bennett Kelly. I'm the Internet Law Center here in Santa Monica, California, and I'm also a host of Cyber Law and Business Report, which airs weekly on Webmaster Radio and is podcast via iHeartRadio, as well as iTunes and other podcast channels. I want to thank Pavan Dukal for inviting me to speak with you today, and I wish I could be attending with you in New Delhi at this international conference on cyber law, cybercrime, and cybersecurity. It's definitely a very interesting time in our space, and I'm sure this is going to be fascinating in terms of the issues that you try to address in your conference. I looked at the agenda; it's quite interesting. I actually will be attending another conference in the United States in Las Vegas, having similar issues as well. And as a practitioner in the space and also as a radio host, um, who covers many of these issues, it certainly is a fascinating time in our field. And so, whether we're talking about net neutrality, protecting consumers on the internet in terms of either privacy or other, prevent cyber harassment, but doing so in a way that doesn't necessarily impede the free flow of information on the internet. These are all challenges that we face, and in addition, we have a bigger debate over who should govern the internet, and as well as challenges dealing with cybersecurity. So I commend you for gathering today, and I wish I could be part of it, maybe some other time. But for the time being, while we may be continents away, fortunately we're just a click away, and so hopefully this will suffice for this conference. Maybe another conference I will be sitting among you. So I was given the choice of selecting a topic that was relevant, and one that I felt that I would like to address to you. And there's an issue here that's very topical here in the United States. It's been under debate now for close to a decade, and it's one I've been following very closely and feel quite strongly about. And that's the issue of net neutrality. And just to give you the framework of what's going on right now, in 2010, the Federal Communications Commission issued a rule called an Open Internet Order, to more or less impose concept of net neutrality on the internet service providers, and it was immediately challenged. And both politically, Congress tried to reverse it, but didn't succeed, and then subject to a court challenge. And then in January, the Federal Circuit, the Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit came back and said, while the FCC definitely does have authority in this area, it didn't properly exercise that authority. Basically, it decided that while it has authority under Title II of the Communications Act to regulate the information service providers and ISPs as a common carrier, it chose not to, for political reasons mainly. It was afraid of the backlash of doing so. But having made that decision not to regulate them in that regard, the court said you can't then impose those type of obligations, common carrier type obligations, upon them. And that's what it really viewed the net neutrality principles as, is imposing certain common carrier obligations. So it was back to the drawing board for the Federal Communications Commission, except now they have a new chairman, somewhat controversial chairman named Tom Wheeler, because he's controversial because he had been a cable industry lobbyist for many years, and the industry is openly hostile to the concept of net neutrality. So Mr. Wheeler floats an idea that instead of being a robust net neutrality response to the court opinion, actually suggested a rule that would be a retreat, and that had the concept what is known as dual pricing. Currently, internet users pay a price to their ISPs to access content or whatever they want on the internet, and that is the price, and that is how internet service providers make their money. What has been troubling for internet service providers is that seeing this emergence of video content and the how companies like Netflix have just really soared, with consumers using them and obviously using a lot of bandwidth in the process. But they're making lots of money, and the internet service providers say they want a share of that, and so they want to be able to charge Netflix and other companies a premium in order to get uninterrupted, unfettered access to their consumers. And when I say uninterrupted and unfettered, there's actually been evidence that almost all of the ISPs at some point have been throttling their users, preventing them from fully connecting in either whether if they're over certain volume levels or for certain types of content. And so this has been going on. That was the proposal put forth by the new chairman, Wheeler. And he invited commentary by, as is pursuant to American administrative procedural law. And so it was open for comment, and a record 4 million Americans submitted comments. It's the largest in history. I was one of the 4 million people who actually submitted comments to the FCC in response to this rule. And I'd like to share with you an excerpt on the rule. And one of the points that was, as this issue has emerged over the years, that has been made by the ISPs was, everything you're talking about, it's theoretical. There really isn't any evidence of harm that would occur absent a net neutrality rule. There really is no need for net neutrality. Nothing, you can trust us, can't you? And while this may have been a theoretical issue in 2004, 2005, when this debate started, it no longer is theoretical. And so I'll start where, at a certain point in my comments to the FCC, I wrote, for example, Verizon has refused to activate a non-Verizon tablet, block pro-choice text messages to its subscribers, argued that it had a First Amendment right to censor traffic on its network, while Time Warner and Comcast each have exempted their own streaming data for services from their bandwidth caps, and AT&T and Comcast have blocked access to certain applications and websites, and Verizon and Comcast are in investigation for throttling Netflix. Despite all the political controversy generated over this issue, the concept of net neutrality is nothing new. It's the principle of non-discrimination that goes back to the Pacific Telegraph Act of 1860. 4 years ago, the FCC, led by then-Chairman Julius Genachowski, had the wisdom to embrace net neutrality, but lacked the political courage to make the legal terms necessary for its ruling to withstand scrutiny. Even then, however, the FCC warned that under a dual pricing model, as being put forth by Chairman Wheeler today, in which ISPs can charge both the consumer and the content provider, ISPs would have the incentives to allow congestion and rather than invest in expanding their network capacity, and could prevent innovation by blocking user access to only affiliated or toll-paying content providers. Each of these events are happening now. Internet neutrality is essential to maintaining a free and open internet that encourages innovation and robust political debate. If the FCC was correct in 2010 that net neutrality was necessary for a free and open internet, when it adopted the Open Internet Order, the need for it has only become greater since at that time, as ISP's anti-competitive behavior has demonstrated why a strong and enforceable net neutrality rule is required. This is not the time to backtrack. The Commission should finish the job the Genachowski FCC began and not relinquish a free and open internet out of political expediency. I am grateful to be part of these 4 million Americans who have voiced their concern over the rule and ask that you give heed to their voice. The netizens of America are calling out and declaring that a concept of a tiered internet as a tantamount to creating a cyber Berlin Wall, separating the haves and the have-nots, and the truly free and those subject to an illusion. The world erupted in elation when the Berlin Wall fell 25 years ago. Why would we now seek to impose its squalor in cyberspace? So I want to thank Paven, for this invite. It's truly an honor to speak to you, to be among this panel of distinguished speakers. And I hope you find these helpful in your discussion, and I look forward to hearing more about the conference and what you guys talk about over the next couple of days. I can be reached at my website is internetlawcenter.net. Feel free to send any comments or questions you may have. I look forward to hearing more about what you guys are doing the next 2 days in New Delhi, and hopefully in a future date I'll be sitting amongst you as I talk to you, my fellow cyber lawyers and the netizens, about how do we create a free and open internet. How do we create a robust internet that promises innovation and that promotes freedom across the world? That's why we are gathered today, and that's why I commend you for your efforts, and I look forward to the day that we can sit down and talk about this face to face. But for now, thank you for the opportunity to submit this video, and all the best to you. Have a great conference.